Hello and welcome to Sociology revision, looking at the theories of work, poverty and welfare, all of the policies. So firstly, we have the Conservative government of 1979 to 1997. They introduced three policies altogether. The first policy was student grants being changed to student loans. The intention of this was to reduce government spending on higher education. Students seem to benefit from experience of more education, for example, higher salaries. The actual impact of this, however, was that still large amounts of people were attending university, but there was a reduction in working class students. Students have a debt burden, and that there's now fees rather than grants. The second policy is CSA, making fathers pay for their children. The intention of this was to make absent fathers pay for their children and to reduce the welfare bill for the government. But the actual impact of this was that there was very big administrative costs. It didn't make as much money as the government had hoped for, and it created more tension within families as the fathers were being forced to pay. There was also a reduction in contact with their children, leading to more social problems and a lack of role models for children. The last policy is charges for dentists and opticians. The intention of this was to reduce the cost of the NHS, which were increasing with life expectancy and medical advances. Also tries to make people self-reliant for aspects of their medical care. The actual impact of this was that the working poor suffered the most due to not qualifying for this help. Also, it created an incentive to not work. Next, we have the new Labour government of 1997 to 2010. They introduced two policies. The first policy was the increase in funded childcare and nursery places, Sure Start. So the intention of Sure Start centres was to fund childcare places for all preschool children and to increase the level of education for the poorest children, and also frees women to work. The last intention was to help families, mothers mainly, to look after their child. The actual impact of Sure Start centres was that it takes 10 years to see the impact on the education. Therefore, the policy was cut. The second policy was the introduction of a national minimum wage. So the intention of this was to make work pay, make working and earning money more attractive to those on benefits, and to ensure employers don't exploit vulnerable workers. The actual impact, however, made low-skilled jobs more attractive, it reduced welfare claimancy, but businesses became less competitive, and it increased labour costs. Next, we have the Conservative Liberal coalition of 2010 to 2015. They introduced three policies. The first policy is welfare to work schemes. The intention of these was to make people qualify for welfare by showing that they are looking for work. It provides help with job applications and is done through private companies to increase success through performance-related funding. The actual impact of this, however, there was some success, but some people were put in the scheme and they weren't able to work. Benefits were sanctioned for non-attendance at interviews, etc. It led to an increase in poverty in the UK, and the use of food banks increased significantly as a result of the benefits being stopped. The next policy we have is EMA being abolished, Educational Maintenance Allowance. The intention of this was to reduce the cost of education at 16 to 19, but too many people going to uni and not getting jobs at the end of it. So the policy made the university route a no-brainer rather than a committed choice. And also, it put money into apprenticeship training. The actual impact, however, it hit the working class the hardest. It ended up with more people dropping out after GCSEs and doing vocational education or none at all. The working class did stay on, but they were getting pressure to do part-time work from their families, therefore being distracted from their studies, leading to lower performance. The last policy is housing benefits being capped. So the intention of this was to reduce the cost of welfare, ensuring payments did not exceed the median income levels, and to make benefits less attractive. The actual impact, however, was that people were forced to move, which made them homeless. It reduced the amount of properties available to rent from private landlords. Therefore, a housing crisis was created. It led to people being forced to go to cheaper areas. Now is the Conservative government of 2015 to present. Their policy was the PIP, Personal Independence Payments, which changed from DLA, Disability Living Allowance. The intention of this change was to empower disabled people to live off welfare and get a job, to be self-reliant and to cut welfare spending. However, many people have had huge cuts to their welfare and have been plunged into poverty. Also, because this is means tested now, those with life-threatening conditions may not even qualify for welfare. Therefore, many don't get welfare when they should. Thank you for listening. This was the Sociology, Work, Poverty and Welfare Policies. Hello and welcome to